If you follow YouTube culture at all, then you've probably heard of the term the adpocalypse, which is a term coined by creators of the YouTube community who have effectively had their ability to monetize their videos with pre-roll ads removed because of violating some type of terms of service that YouTube set out. And in the most recent reincarnation of the adpocalypse, you have two creators on the platform in a bit of a fight. You have conservative comedian and commentator Steven Crowder and Vox host Carlos Maza. Now, there are a lot more videos that have covered this spat between the two creators in a much more nuanced fashion, and I've linked to videos of those below. But in terms of brevity's sake, it basically boils down to two key questions. And the first question being is, what is the difference between the legal definition of harassment and the colloquial use of harassment or harassing language? And what should YouTube do as a platform to deal with these fights between creators who feel like they're being wronged or harassed on their platform? Now, to set the stage a little bit, you have to realize that YouTube as a platform has really only existed in the last 15 years. There are TV shows that are still running today that have existed longer than the entirety of YouTube. And when YouTube launched in 2005, it wasn't even owned by Google, and there were plenty of other video sharing sites around at the time, things like Dailymotion, Vimeo, Metacafe, things that are still running today and at the time arguably had better features than YouTube. But one of the core reasons that YouTube, of all of these video platforms, became the biggest video platform on all of the internet was because of the launch in 2007 of their content creator platform, which essentially allowed content creators or video uploaders to monetize their videos with ad placements and get a portion of the revenue made by clicks or views of those ads before their videos. Revenue from advertisements or ad placements make up the majority of the revenue that these companies like Google, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter use to keep growing and expanding at the crazy rates that they are today. And likewise, content creators on these platforms rely on those companies to keep expanding so that they get a piece of the ad revenue pie themselves. But in the age of political correctness and changing notions of what you should or shouldn't say, creators and commentators on platforms like YouTube are increasingly finding themselves in a bind. Video content creators like myself are finding that saying or doing certain things that are perfectly within the realm of the law are resulting in themselves not being able to make an income from their videos and not being able to run their video creation or content creation businesses at all. Ridiculous things such as Twitter users being banned for saying the words "learn to code" and effectively censored from the entire platform just for uttering those 3 words. And effectively, if you don't comply to the demands of the platforms like Google or YouTube, you lose the ability to monetize any sort of creative video content on those platforms. It's effectively like how TV networks force movie studios to shoot versions of scenes from their movies that are safe for TV or PG friendly.
Enough is enough! I have had it with these monkey fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane! Everybody strap in! About to open some freaking windows.
But if you've used the internet for more than 6 or 7 years, you know that it hasn't always been like this. The internet was born on the backs of offensive and maybe tasteless content. On platforms such as Newgrounds, Albino Black Sheep, MySpace, the social platforms as they exist today would not be the same if it wasn't for some of the pioneering and maybe offensive or tasteless content that came out back in the early days of the 2000s. So regardless of what side of the fence you're on when it comes to the Carlos Maza or Steven Crowder debate, both of these sides have a common enemy. And that common enemy is a platform like YouTube, which has such an opaque terms of service and serves a much stronger allegiance to their advertisers and shareholders than the users and content creators that built their platform to begin with. It's a fight that YouTube as a company can't win. But what if there was a different way to run social media platforms like YouTube or Facebook? What if there was a form of governance on these platforms that didn't rely on generating ad revenue or appeasing any party for that matter? What if we had a fully autonomous and decentralized version of YouTube, where virtually any content is allowed as long as it doesn't violate federal or territorial laws? These sort of platforms are being developed every day on blockchains, the same technology that powers Bitcoin. Whether or not you believe in Bitcoin as a currency is entirely subjective, but what you can't deny is that Bitcoin has had a global impact in that it's completely accessible and censorship resistant to any country around the globe. There are countries like Argentina or Venezuela that have such rampant inflation in their state-run currencies that they rely on things like Bitcoin just to do day-to-day transactions. And there are countries so deep in poverty that financial institutions won't offer them services, but they still have access to Bitcoin because they have access to the internet or a phone or a computer. The same censorship-resistant technology that powers financial blockchains like Bitcoin can also power content creation platforms. Alternatives to platforms like YouTube that can't just have their terms of services changed on a whim. And they provide an entirely new way to monetize content that doesn't require a middleman ad placement company like Google, YouTube, or Facebook. You have platforms like the Brave browser, which enable users to make money by passively getting ad notifications while also completely blocking Google or YouTube traditional ads. And the money received from passively browsing the web on platforms like Brave can be automatically and directly contributed to YouTube creators that the users watch on a day-to-day basis. Instead of middleman platforms handling the process, restricting what you can or can't say, and demanding a cut of the ad revenue themselves. One of the content platforms on the forefront of this is DTube. DTube is a completely decentralized platform similar to Reddit or YouTube, with a concept that content curators should get compensated for providing and sharing popular content. And when you share or get upvotes for posting content on a platform like DTube, you get compensated real monetary value tokens that you can either cash out for US or Canadian dollars, or you can share with other content creators on the platform to support the type of content that they're creating. This is of course a really simplified version of how these content platforms work, but the idea is that viable alternatives and competitors to YouTube actually exist today. They're really tiny right now, with fractions of the users that these giant tech monopolies and social platforms have. But they provide a real alternative to content creators who want to make a living from the type of videos that they produce. If you truly want YouTube or any of these social platforms to make a difference, they need to see an impact on their balance sheet. There needs to be a form of competition to these tech monopolies, and these decentralized content sharing platforms provide just that. So to Steven Crowder and Carlos Maza, you have millions of followers that heed to your every word on the social platforms that you post on. Instead of tweet storming or posting 20-minute rant videos on YouTube, or complaining to various media outlets on how you're being treated unfairly or how these social platforms are inequitable, make a difference and make a change and switch to these platforms. Go out and encourage your followers to go onto these new decentralized platforms to view your content. Then and only then will these companies like YouTube and Facebook start to feel the pressure and make real positive changes for the content creators and users on their platforms. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you want to support more content like this in the future, you can donate BAT tokens using the Brave web browser above. And I've included a link on how to download and get started with that because I mentioned it in this video. I have a very special cameo coming up with a very popular YouTuber, and I can't wait to share that with you because we're going to dive into Bitcoin and blockchain and some of these concepts to a much broader audience, and it should be a ton of fun. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.